Good afternoon, everyone. Let's chat with Mac. We're glad to have you. For those of you that are faithful viewers of our little show here, we really appreciate you. Please subscribe. Press the subscribe button there on the top. Share it with all your friends. We're happy because it's growing on a week by week basis. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I think we were talking this week in our weekly meeting, our huddle, about some of the changes. I mean, there's so much going on in the MSSP sector. I mean, overall, there's consolidations. There's all this stuff that's going on. I want to get some insight. What are some things you're seeing?
Yeah, well, so specifically to the managed service provider and managed service security provider space, there's a lot of changes happening. The industry is kind of like in a turmoil. There's a lot of mergers, acquisitions. There's a lot of PE money coming in. There's, on the horizons, there's talk about slowing economy.
Yeah.
A lot of things happening, right? And being in our peer groups, we are seeing this firsthand. A lot of change is happening.
Yeah.
Whether it's acquisitions, whether it's just the business itself is changing, and it's all I think the big change started around when the pandemic came about, and because I remember instead of seeing the slowdown, we saw an uptick in business.
Yeah.
And so my thinking was, okay, it's an uptick because companies have to make changes to accommodate for remote work, and that's going to slow down once things get consolidated and stuff, and everything is done. And then we will see a little bit of an uptick again when people start coming back into the office, and maybe some of the changes are required again. The industry did not go that way. Things didn't go that way. We saw an uptick. Yeah, we saw an uptick initially when the pandemic hit, and that uptick, that incline, that slope stayed steady. It never flattened out or went down. We were thinking it was going to go down, but it never did. We are still on that same trajectory, and which is an anomaly. We just haven't had. I mean, we haven't been through a pandemic before, so we haven't encountered it before. But what's interesting is that business really never slowed down for us. MSPs, MSSPs, anywhere, right? Across the world. It's not just U.S. I'm talking about across the world. I mean, we have in our peer groups, we have MSPs from Australia, similar situation. So I think this is a worldwide phenomenon, and I'm pretty sure it's not restricted to just the MSP and MSSP space. It's happening across industries now. So that's a good place to be in. You're on an upward trajectory, which is good. You have to kind of navigate the seas. You want to avoid any missteps in this process, and there are a few things that, if you're an MSP or if you are an MSSP, there are a few things that we have to do, and we have to do well right now. That's what we focus on. Number one, of course, is security. Security is not going to slow down. It's only going to gain more momentum.
This is true.
And we are seeing that more and more businesses are reaching out to us, hey, we have these requirements, or our customers are demanding that we put these things in place. How are we protecting our customer data? How are we protecting our data? Because if companies are not protecting their own data, their downtime impacts their customers, and there are some repercussions to that. So that's what we're seeing. The second thing is we have to innovate faster, better. So being in the IT space, yeah, we are pretty gung-ho on innovation. We have to innovate. Just that's what the market is. We have to keep that pace of innovation good. It needs to be pretty hefty pace compared to other industries, but we have to kick it up a notch, right? And for sure, it doesn't matter if you are thinking about, selling your MSP, or if you're thinking about, maybe merging some other MSPs into yourself. No matter what you're thinking, your pace of innovation needs to expand. It needs to get better. And we are, internally, we are figuring out some new ways to build an innovation engine.
Yep.
And that's what the name of the game is. And if some MSPs out there already have an innovation engine built up, they need to kick it into high gear, because with every economic downturn, there is an opportunity. And to be able to take advantage of that opportunity, we have to innovate better than everybody else out there in our space, right? So we have to innovate better than the other MSPs and MSSPs out there. And if you're on the right side of that equation, you don't have to be, in the top 10, but as long as you're on the right side of that equation, you have a good chance of coming out better out of the downturn. So, those are the two main things that we are focusing on, is security and innovation. And I think pretty much most MSPs out there, this is what they're focusing on. Yeah. There is always operational stuff, but we have to improve that operational stuff by building innovation into every aspect of the company.
Yeah.
And, historically, we've never really owed anybody money. We've never really borrowed money. We're pretty good as far as, we are ready for that economic downturn. And keep in mind, the downturn really doesn't hit. Well, historically, economic downturns do not hit MSPs as hard as some other industries. And that is why people are buying MSPs. People who have never before even considered buying MSPs are now looking to invest in MSPs, because the MSP industry does not get impacted as much by an economic downturn.
Okay.
And the signs of economic downturn are everywhere.
But why is that? Well, why is it that MSPs aren't? Let me backtrack. Is it one of those things where MSPs are almost essential workers, essential need to companies, to where no matter what goes on, they're gonna need some type of IT help? Is that one of the reasons, or is there something else?
So here's why. So most MSPs, any industry out there, requires IT services.
Yeah.
Any industry.
Yep.
So if people say, well, why would I want to get into IT? Because every industry relies on IT, doesn't matter what it is. From restaurants to SpaceX, everybody needs IT. So that by itself allows MSPs to have insight and access to multiple industries as sources of revenue, right? So for example, let's say if accounting firms are down, if financial services are down, then maybe legal is up. And if an MSP is working in both these industries, on average, it doesn't make a difference, because as much as one industry goes down, another industry goes up. And that's what's helped us in the past. We've been through a few downturns, and we have come out, very well out of these downturns. The reason why we have fared well in these downturns is we've always been diverse. Our customer base has always been diverse. Different industries, multiple industries. Now, if you are a true MSP or MSSP, then you need to make sure that no one customer brings in more than 20% of your revenue. That's a bad place to be in. And over the years, we've kind of, doing this for a while, we've kind of learned this, that we never want to have more than 20% of revenue coming from one customer.
Yeah.
Same thing with industries. You don't want to have all of your revenue coming from one industry.
Yeah.
And that's where the art of running an MSP comes into play. Not the science, but the art. Because first, you have to be specialized in a specific industry so much that you are targeting that industry. But then on the other hand, you don't want to have all your income coming from one industry, because when that industry goes down, you start to have problems. And historically, we have a good track record of being diverse, having a diverse customer base. So if one industry is down, the other one is up, and overall, on average, it doesn't really impact us that bad. But this time we're taking it a step further, where we are trying to make sure that our lines of credits are good. If they can be expanded, we're expanding them, both from banks and also from our vendors. Like I said, we don't borrow money, but hey, I want to have the option to borrow money if we need to, right? So get those in place now. Some of the other things are, we are trying to conserve cash as much as we can. Cash is going to be king when there's a downturn. You want to diversify your investments and things like that. And I'm not a big investment type person, but I understand that we have to have more cash in the bank than we may anticipate we need, because you never know about these downturns, how bad they're going to get and how long they're going to last. So those are just some of the things that are happening within the MSP community. This just gives a little insight into how we run business, how our MSP business runs. And at the same time, while we're doing all of this, we have to go through this transformation where our focus is constantly shifting and moving deeper and deeper into security.
And I know for a lot of people, they may listen, to our, into our podcast show, whatever you want to call it, and say, man, those guys really talk about security. Listen, I mean, you heard what Nadeem is saying. I can preference this with during the pandemic, and the sheer amount of attacks that came during the pandemic was absolutely bonkers. Now, keep in mind, I'm on the sales side. I'm on the whole nother side, but I have, I'm privy to listening to what Nadeem and our engineering team, they deal with, and it was just like, whoa. And then outside of our client base, seeing other people breached, hacked, fished. And that was during, of course, the pandemic. And it was the vulnerabilities of, especially smaller companies became spotlighted. And so now, as we go into this period of uncertainty, because we don't know what's going to happen, I can only imagine the bad guys are probably shoring up their offense, and getting ready like, hey, this is prime. When I call in the companies, and they just have such a laissez-faire type of attitude towards security, and you're the ones they're looking for. The smaller businesses, they're looking for you, because I think, was it 68%? We've said this before. 68% of businesses, smaller businesses that get hit, don't make it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why the bad guys want to focus on small to medium business, is because they're easy targets.
Yeah.
They don't have the budgets of the large. But now, you don't hear about those all the time on the news. You only hear about the big guys that get breached. But if you look at the actual numbers, there's a lot more smaller guys who get hit than the bigger guys. But we only hear about the bigger guys because that's what gets on the news.
Yeah.
But we see this, almost on a daily basis, where a prospect will call us and say, hey man, we need help. This is what happened, and what do we do? Give us some ideas. How do we handle this? They've never been through, some sort of a rehearsal about what to do when a breach happens. And things like, they're like training their accounting guys. Hey, if somebody shoots you an email to change their bank account information and send the money to a different bank account, you don't just do it. You verify it via alternate method. So if an email came in, you verify via phone call, and you don't call the number that's in that email. You call the number that you have on file, because consider that email breached, and the bad guys are wanting you to change the account number to send the money to a different account. And I mean, it seems, once we talk about it, it seems so small a thing that you would think everybody would be doing this, but you will be amazed that a
Yeah.
lot of businesses don't do this,
Nope.
and management doesn't even talk about it with their accounting guys. They don't know how their accounting guys are going to handle a situation like this, and it's only after they get hit and they end up sending the money to the wrong account, and then they start to scramble, and that's when they call us and say, hey, we need help. What do we do now? We've never encountered this before. What do we do? And it's like, well, you should have done this before it happened. You should have already rehearsed this. You should have processes in place, just like we have processes in place internally. I mean, we have an accounting department. We have these things in place. We rehearse it. We do our exercises on an annual, quarterly basis. Why? I mean, we are IT people. Why do we do this? Because it needs to be muscle memory.
Yeah.
It needs, and that the only way you can develop that muscle memory is if you rehearse through it enough times. And that's when it's like, okay, bad thing happened, no problem. I know what to do. My muscle memory is going to take over. It's going to be automatic. I'm automatically going to do that. So I think that's the name of the game is, and we, when we engage with a prospect, with, once they become a customer, and I tell this to everybody, once they become a customer, they start to see the changes that we are making. They start to see the benefit of it in about 90 days. It takes about 90 days on average. It takes about 90 days for the things that we are implementing for those changes to start giving you benefit. I also, when I talk to prospect, I tell them this. I was like, look, we're going to have this conversation in 90 days again, because your volume of tickets is going to go way down, and you're going to be talking to me to lower your rates because you don't have that many tickets. But it's because the engine is working great. That's why you don't have tickets. Once we slow the engine down, we take off some services, the whole machine breaks. It stops working. Then your tickets volumes start climbing, and then you get caught in that downward spiral of death. And that's the killer of MSPs out there, is that downward spiral of death. But I think, right now, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't say whether it's 3 months or 6 months or a year down the line that we're going to run into this downturn that we are seeing on the horizon. It's almost like you see this red light on the horizon, it's a dust storm coming. You just don't know when it's going to get here. so, and that's what we are seeing, and that's what our community is seeing, just to give people insight into what MSPs and MSSPs are thinking, not in IT terms, but just in general, just in business terms. And to fear that storm well, we are, like I said, we are consolidating stuff. We are building innovation engines and kicking it into high gear. We are looking into some newer technologies that we can bring to market. I know one of the big things is, and it's just off top of my head, so I'm going to throw it out there. I know one of the big things is AI. That's so we're looking at innovation in that area. But that's just one of the things that we're looking at. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going on. At the same time, we need to conserve cash, which is kind of like, I mean, it's hard to do, right? You have to make changes. You have to kick innovation into high gear, which requires more investment, but yet you want to conserve cash. So it's a fine balancing act. But like I said, we've done well in the past, in the past downturn. So I think we'll be okay. But it's still something to think about, something to consider. But that explains why there is higher than usual level of investment in the MSP space from private equity firms and other companies. And there's a lot of just consolidation going on, right? And everybody who's related to the MSP industry, there's a lot of consolidation going on. So that's where we are at. That's where my head is at. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Like Max said, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit that bell, so you'll get an update. And sorry, I haven't created a video for this last week. I was out. I was at one of our events, but these events are important because that's how we interact with other MSPs and get a pulse of what's going on, right? We can't live in a silo. We have to connect with others, and that's think of it kind of like our sensors out there, and we have to get feedback from these sensors, and that's what I was doing. So with that, I appreciate everybody's time. Mac, you have a great day, and
Yes,
we'll
sir.
see y'all tomorrow.